Here is R. Wayne Steiger. I'm Jeffrey Darty, the Christian
Hello.
Blower, and it is not your normal Sunday morning show. It is a normal Sunday morning. Well, at least it is Sunday morning. Wayne and I were just talking about the moon, and I noticed some weird stuff about the full moon. And Wayne has a whole string of thoughts here for us about the moon. So, Wayne, let's start off in lunar orbit.
Yeah, well, hello, everyone. Thank you for stopping by. Looking good, Jeff. So anyway, I am an avid sky watcher, videotape it, film it all the time. And this full moon cycle started out weird to begin with. It just, they keep on telling us that the supermoons, we're going to have this last one was supposed to have been the one for the whole year. Well, looks to me like the moon is still extraordinarily large. I began to notice something, how it was rising in the eastern horizon. I got a little bit of a sore throat. It was going far more to what looked to me to be more northeast, right? And so I have a perfect view where my house is because I have the Rocky Mountains right behind me. And I can measure where the moon sets each morning. Well, this morning freaked me out because I couldn't believe what I was actually seeing. Videotaped it. I will be actually doing a succinct video of each of the last 3 days so people can see what I have seen. And go out and look at it now. It is much further to the south than it should be. And where it was 3 days ago, it's a 45-degree variation. Well,
Wayne, when you say then it should be, how do we know what those standards are for where it should be?
Well, we have, you can go online, you can see exactly where the inclination is, where it's supposed to sit on the degrees. And so you always go out and I always observe what am I seeing as according to what is actually there. Now, 3 years ago, I began, and a lot of other people were recording anomalies in where the sun was setting. We were seeing the sun setting far more to what should have been northwest than west-northwest when you get into the peak of summertime, and we were seeing anomalies, sometimes as much of a deviation of 6 to sometimes 8 degrees. Well, we knew that the Earth was wobbling then. The moon, I think, is even more interesting because it seems to have a different, typically, this is how it works, and I can see my fingers. This is where the sun rises, right? Sun goes across. The moon will typically follow that same path, 6 degrees, sometimes variation of the path of how the sun traverses through the sky. It hasn't been doing that. It's being differently shaped. So, theory. Anyone can go online. We're seeing it now here in North America. The latest place to be is North Carolina. Is now finding anomalies into tides. We've been seeing it in South America where, depending on where you are, typically you're if on the east side of South America, you're seeing the tides pull out. On the west side, you're seeing what were freak tsunamis. But now the west side is experiencing these drains. The only thing that I think could be causing that would be the moon. And if there was a deviation in the moon's particular path, the oceans would show that as well. And so my hypothesis, and it's just a hypothesis because I just wrote it down literally when I came outside from in here to do the show, is that we would see a corresponding effect with the ocean tides. And we are.
Yeah, and Mac Remembrance, that's, of course, Sterling from Osaka. He says the Earth always wobbles. It's called the precession.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And there is a website where you can go. You'll never get a satellite view of directly upon the North Pole. We don't have that. They have it, but the public doesn't see that. But what we can do is that we can measure the inclination from geographical north. And we have seen wide deviations in the last 2 years of that typical progression.
Why do you think we never get a view from full north?
Don't get one from full south. I don't know. They're hiding. I don't know. You could say they're hiding something up there. I don't know.
Right.
So let's talk about the North Pole, by the way. Do you know what happened on Thursday?
No.
The temperature at the North Pole was 58 degrees.
Wow, that seems pretty high.
It should be minus 34.
And I actually noticed the night before the full moon that the moon looked extraordinarily bright, so much so that I actually videotaped it because I wondered if something was going on.
I've been telling you, I can't look at the moon anymore directly on with my telescope. It's too bright.
Really?
Too bright.
So is it reflecting more of the sun's light? Is it its own luminous source? What do you think?
I don't know. Some strange stuff is going on up there. It really is.
Do you have any idea on what you think it might be?
Well, I mean, the suspicion has always been is that the moon is an artificial satellite.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Are we seeing an activation? I mean, the Earth is changing. We know that. We see that. I mean, Trisha was doing a live, YouTube marathon in the middle of a freaking blizzard.
Right.
In London. And I'm watching this, and at the same time, it's 58 degrees at the North Pole. And now we have this huge, and listen, if it was 3 months from now, this would be called a hurricane, an early season hurricane. This monster low pressure system sitting off the east coast of the United States. And what's getting stranger is that this is not the first time. This is now number 3. Bombogenesis. I've never heard that term.
They don't want us to see the hole up there. I think he's talking about the North Pole.
I agree with you, Sterling. I think it's exactly it. Listen, I hear the people with the flat earth. I get it. Hey, listen, everyone can have their view and their belief. But I happen to believe in the hollow earth. I think that from a physics perspective, it makes sense. I've never gotten quite sure how this solid mass is responsible for gravity, for rotation, for spin in an electrical universe. I think there's other dynamics at play. How do you measure gravity? I mean, does gravity extend as high as it goes below? Because what most people don't realize, Jeff, is that, for instance, the International Space Station, that's in a low orbit of the Earth. Okay, we know the effects of gravity at 250 miles. So there's virtually none.
Right.
Yeah, you got the pull of the Earth, but the fact is that you're in the vacuum of space. So does gravity have the same effect 250 miles below? Because the Earth's yeah.
They would tell you that it would be stronger the closer you got to the source of mass.
You would think, but it doesn't. I mean, this is weird because if you think about it, we now have the ability to drill down pretty deep. And you think about, well, all right, let's say we got down to 100 miles into the Earth. Well, the gravity should be what? We know in the bottom of the ocean, because of the density of the water, the pressures are greatly amplified. But what do you do where you don't have, let's say, in a cavernous situation? Would gravity begin to have an effect as you began to climb down?
Well, I know as a scuba diver that the deeper you go, the pressure does greatly intensify. So unless you're wearing special equipment, I'm certified to go to 150 feet, and you can definitely feel the pressure down there. It's tough. You can't stay down there very long because you burn up your oxygen. So, I mean, it looks like, at least in the ocean, the closer you get to the source of gravity, things start getting more dense, or the gravity starts getting stronger. But never have I been down, in a cavern or anything like that. So very, very interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to how we began to look at this coming in, there's something that I do believe is going on with our moon and the corresponding reports that we're getting. The last one was in North Carolina, where they woke up and the river, now you can go online and see it, dry. People waking up going, what happened?
Somebody said the water was disappearing.
Yeah, literally. And we're getting these kinds of reports, excuse me, all on this side of the planet.
And you think that would be moon related for sure?
I mean, the moon has such a effect already on the tides. That's how we measure our tides, is by the moon phase, not the sun, the moon.
Right. So Wayne, Billy Graham is dead.
Yes, he is.
Any commentary on that?
Well, interesting, I do. It's odd that you mentioned that. When we look at Billy Graham's life, I know the story of his partner. When he first got into the ministry in the 30s, he was not the one that was expected to be the big star. It was his partner.
Randolph Hearst changed all that.
Yes. And that man was awake.
Hearst was?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the fact that what Billy Graham could never accept was that there was an awareness that started, as I'm finding out now, it was called the spiritualist movement. It was coinciding exactly with what we had, the Azusa Street revival and the move of the Holy Spirit, of what the Christians called it. I never saw this, Jeff, but there were two dynamic forces at play.
Yeah, Azusa Street was
1909.
It was, I was going to say it was earlier than Graham, but that's when it actually started, and it was
started everything.
Really getting whipped up around the 30s.
Yep, it started from Azusa Street and Smith Wigglesworth.
They thought Billy Graham died years ago, so it's a little bit of a Mandela effect.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I don't either.
I worked, I developed a mobile payment system for churches and worked with all the denominations. And no, I've known, the Reverend Graham for a long time. I wish him well. He chose a path that was endowed by a belief of a Savior named Jesus. And and let me tell you, oddly enough, you and I didn't talk about this. So right here, I'm writing down, because I'm getting these stories that there is this mass exodus taking place in the Christian faith. Estimated
right after Billy died, and I don't know if you saw my video, but I took some heat for it. It was Billy Graham, good riddance.
Well, all I know is this: you have to at least recognize facts. And the thing about Christianity is that they will not recognize the facts. And the facts is that there was never a human being walking on planet Earth named Jesus Christ. And furthermore, you don't change a name of a God. If he was, in fact, a God, you would not have changed his name. They would have known what his Hebraic name was. But the fact of the matter is, reality of actual history, the Jews in the first century, they had hundreds of messiahs running around. There never was a crucifixion, because the fact that wood was very valuable at the time, and the Roman law dictated all crucifixions be recorded back to Rome. There was only one crucifixion that took place, and that was in the year 69 AD by Titus. Oh, it just happened to be on Golgotha. And that is the problem, Jeff, is that they won't recognize this. And then when I look at what the spiritualist movement, which led to, for instance, people like Edgar Cayce, many other great spiritualists that were coming out of the late 19th century into the 20th century. Here was an opposing force that You know,
And it could be argued, Wayne, why I said Billy Graham, good riddance. And if facts are facts, if Christianity is a fear and guilt control matrix, then Billy Graham led more people than anyone in history into slavery inside a fear and guilt control matrix. So that's why I said Billy Graham, good riddance. And we've got a person in the chat room that is not so hot on Billy Graham, but they're really hot on Billy Meyer. So we've got a Billy Meyer Beam advocate in the chat room. I find him to be interesting, but I don't buy it.
Yeah, everyone has a different reality, Jeff. And
They do.
I have just learned that I've really got, someone spoke to me last week. I got this download. Hate is the absence of knowledge. Because if you know someone, even with their different views, the posing, no matter how wretched they are, but to actually go to the extreme of hate, which is the absence of love, is exactly the devoidness of knowledge.
Well, far be it from me to disagree with you, Wayne, but I do remember Tombstone. And when Doc Holliday met Johnny Ringo, he asked Big Nose Kate, should I hate him? And she said, you don't even know him. But the more he learned about him as Johnny Ringo started speaking,
that's classic line.
Learned that he was an educated man. The more he knew about him, Doc Holliday said, yes, I'm sure of it. I hate him. So the more knowledge he had, the more hate he had.
Well, now there is, in fact, a principle within the Sefer Yetzirah, is the fact that the problem is just that. In order to gain wisdom, you must first acquire understanding, knowledge.
Right.
If you have that, you're going to have the dichotomy of everything that you've learned. You're going to have an exact opposite.
Yeah. But a lot of the time, we're not really looking for understanding. We're not even really looking for knowledge. We're looking to, get our say said. We're looking to, make everybody hear what we believe, and we're not really looking for knowledge. That's really the problem with religion. Religion is not a search for knowledge. Religion is, we've decided what is true, and we're trying to convince you.
Yeah. I have this article I can pull up. It was written by a Notre Dame professor, and he wrote this, and you can actually go on Notre Dame's website and in his column on the staff, and he said, we are witnessing the end of civilization right now. And he went on to write about the fact of the youth today.
The youths?
The youths. And the point that he came to was this: they don't care. They have no soul.
Who's they?
The youth, the I don't know what they call them, Generation Z, I believe. These are the ones who are graduating.
Do they literally have no soul, Wayne? Literally?
Listen, here's what his point was. How he was coming to this conclusion was this: they don't have a past. They don't care about history. They don't care about the past. They can't pass a basic history test. They don't teach it in the schools, and it's no longer a part of the identity of who they are spiritually. Remember, we're talking about Notre Dame here.
Right.
And that the fact that he is witnessing a devoid of spiritualism, an awareness.
Could it be beneficial to not understand history? Could it be beneficial to almost flush history and start again afresh and anew?
Well, as the famous historian that was quoted as a philosopher said, he who forgets the past is doomed to relive it again.
Yeah, I understand that. And I'm almost thinking, boy, if we could just, because sometimes I used to say when I was a preacher, you can't preach someone found until you preach them lost, because a lot of people didn't think they were lost. And now I realize that they weren't. But if unlearning error is such a big part of coming to truth, and I'm just wondering if maybe if we don't have all that error stacked up on us, we might be able to come to truth more easily and more quickly. And maybe it's guys like you and me, Wayne, that have always thought you've got to learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. Maybe we're putting more burden on people than they need. Maybe we should just get a tabula rasa, clean the slate, and start over. Just speculating.
Well, actually, there's some foundation to that speculation. Many sociologists would agree with you on this, that the collapse of our civilization, apparently this has happened in the past. There's archaeological evidence of a culture that Homo sapiens, or at least a version of us, achieved technology. We were advanced. We had computers. It's very well theorized that we had something that was even beyond that, but something collapsed. And we see this repeatedly. And it seems like the greater the technical achievements that we hit, the greater the collapse becomes.
That's interesting. And of course, the history that we're learning is the history that's written by the victors. So you could really say that there really is no true history. And one of the reasons is because Jesus slaves. So the history we're learning isn't even really history. So are we saying that if we don't learn their lies, we're doomed to repeat them? There's a key. We have to learn true history, not history as it's pitched to us. So, yeah, we can't learn their lies. We have to go beyond it to find true history. There's our key.
There is our key. And I'll tell you, there's correspondence to that as well. 3 million Christians are leaving the Christian faith worldwide each month. That's an exodus. And you know who's picking it up? It seems like it's Muslims that are picking it up. It seems like there's a movement over to that. Interesting correlation. But here's the point. So as we see this awareness of history, right, the real history, I think you got a really good point there, is like, well, that defies everything I've ever known. So now I have a dilemma. What if you have a new generation coming up that begins to see history as it really happened? There would be probably a marked difference in their attitude.
One would think, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, number one, for instance, I have the biggest debate now with more and more people over on my channel that, when you tell them that the Bible is not an historical document, I said that, and it's a fact. People, I can't believe how many people actually think the Bible is a historical, accurate document. And I keep telling them it's a literary document. It uses history as a foundation to the basis of the story. It gives the story credibility. That's called typology. Topology. And what that is, it's a trick that ancient writers knew how to do. And it's while you make up a story and you drop in key events into history, but you don't do it while the history's taking place. This will happen 100 years or so down the road.
Absolutely.
That's how it was done.
Best says, where do we get this true history? That's a good point. And I get your point 100% about people leaving. I think that number's a little aggressive. Christianity would cease to exist in less than 30 months if 3 million were leaving it every month. But there's
there's 240 billion.
There's a lot of them leaving.
Yeah, well, I looked at the number, 1.3 billion worldwide Christians. Right. So it would take a long time for 3 million people. You could run that out for 100 years. But nevertheless, so now these people are coming.
And then the Vikings somehow got into the chat room. But how do we find true history, Wayne?
Well, I wrestled with that question, and I finally have come to the conclusion of this. Let's look at the written history that we do have available. And fortunately, the greatest discovery, I think, for mankind have been the Sumerian tablets. I mean, they are the original thought laid down in clay, in stone in this case, of man's thinking. It described our civilization, our society, everything that we look at the Sumerians, we realize that if we were able to teleport ourselves 6,000 years back in Sumer, let's say we wanted to go to the city of Ur. It was the capital city of the Chaldees, was where Abram came from. That's why most of the world religions start there. The fact is this, all the roads lead back to Sumer. So what were the tablets about? Well, read them. We can translate them now. We know what they were. And I keep on contending this. Don't give me a Bible. Don't give me a book that is behind the Sumerian tablets. Because if your God is not in the Sumerian tablets, then we got a problem. He was made up after the fact. So where was this God hiding?
Sumerian tablets, for sure.
Where was this God hiding? You know what the problem is? And I had one person freak out because I flat told her, I said, I'll tell you what most of the religions are worshiping. They're either worshiping Enki or Enlil. That's bottom line, folks. All of you who say your prayers, praying to Jesus, praying to your Christian God, the bottom line of it is, it's most likely Enki is who you're really praying to. Why? Why do I say this, Jeff? Because the Christian religion, the Jewish religion, and the Islam religion all come from Abram.
And the Jewish religion.
And, well, yeah, the Hebrews. All come from Sumer.
Well, they're definitely all worshiping the same God. Yahweh is Allah, is the Lord. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about it. And Lord, let's be honest. We use the word Lord so flippantly here. Lord literally means bald. That's what it means.
Every time you ask, do they get power from our devotion? I think yes.
Sure they do. Absolutely. Do you know how much psychic power? In fact, I'm doing a video right now, Jeff, that I am going to have a professor help me with. I've come up with a new way, a new propulsion system. But to get back to, but getting back, yes, they feed off the energy of worship. Listen, how many of us have gone to a rock concert? That's a form of worship. And you get caught up into the moment, and your devotion is to that band or individual on the stage.
Mm-hmm. And guess where competitive sports started from all historical investigation that we have? Where did competitive sports
probably from the gods.
In Sumer. And competitive sports have always been inexorably linked to military training, identifying the best people for military action. And you think about it, the gods, if you're a god that is feeding on blood and a god that's feeding on that type of emotion, you can't always have war. There's got to be some breaks, but you can always have sports. And if you talk about the devotion from rock concerts, look at the devotion to the NFL and the NBA and the NHL. Yeah. You literally have fights in the stands and they're even many times
soccer.
You know, they talk about how many people are killed at soccer games. They talk about the war. So I have had to really reevaluate my sports fans. I mean, I'm out of the NFL now, but I'm having to really look at it and see, do I need to stop watching the NHL, the Tampa Bay Lightning, because what am I feeding?
It's all about aggression, and it all is about worship. I keep telling people we are still worshiping this gods. I spoke to a person this week that you and I know, Jeff, and I told her, I said, I don't know, and I may be wrong, but I get the feeling these gods are waiting for us to call them back. And I thought it was real interesting. I just happened to watch the movie Wonder Woman.
Was it good? And
I'm sitting there with my jaw dropped because I'm looking at the background of what's going on here, this story. And I'm thinking to myself, holy crap. I mean, they're telling us, they're telepathically communicating. The reason why we have superheroes, why? Because they're anchored to who we are. The gods. Now there is an ultimate infinite being, above all the concepts of gods, because all the concepts of God are still all man created.
Right. And think about this. If you
Aries.
keep people focused on gods, which they did for a long time, now it's hard to keep people focused on gods because, they're kind of past that. But if you can get them to focus on superheroes, it accomplishes the same goal if the goal is to keep us and to keep people in general from realizing the divinity or the superhero within. Let's keep them distracted on gods and superheroes and sports heroes and musical heroes and political heroes. And let's keep them from, at all costs, recognizing that they've got the spark of divinity within them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's what's happening. And you just laid it out so very eloquently, is that it's a form of worship no matter how you look at it. It's devotion. I'm devoted to the Republican or the Democratic Party. I'm devoted, blah, 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 blah. That's what devotion is.
It is. And somebody is eating that devotion.
Yeah.
Somebody is eating up that emotion. Now, somebody says, what if I want to go out and shoot some baskets on my own? What if I want to watch a game and not get, just enjoy the skill, someone said, of hockey players? But I know, it was only 2 years ago that I retired from playing hockey. And even in the old guys beer league, you get really into it. And I remember, man, near fights breaking out, and you're on the ice and you're so competitive that you're ready to fight. It stirs something up in you.
It does. It's primal. It really is. And, I've been doing some studying on the soul. The concept of the soul is actually a pretty recent belief. And if you go back, there really has never been this belief of the soul. It was a spirit, and you had mind or consciousness. But the soul has been something that we've adapted to within the last 2,000 years. And it's interesting how you begin to see and define what the soul is. Because if the soul can be corrupted, I don't think the spirit can. So can the two be divided? I don't know. It gets a little dicey.
Last week, if people remember, I was at the Casadega Spiritualist Retreat.
Yeah.
And I was talking with one of the spiritualist ministers there. And she offered a very interesting thought to me that I had never pondered before, talking about the soul and the spirit. Now, if the spirit, let's say the spirit is that indefinable part of us, this is what I believe. The spirit is that spark of divinity in us, that part that is born of divinity, that part that is in the image of the divine. And that is true spirit. And the spiritualists typically don't believe in reincarnation because their logic is, if a spirit is spirit, why does it have to keep coming back into flesh to grow and evolve? Why can't it grow and evolve and develop as a spirit, which makes a lot of sense to me. But then she said, what about the soul? What if the soul is like the mind, the will, the emotions, the human essence of us? And what if a soul is subject to reincarnation, but the spirit isn't subject to reincarnation? And it would explain these dilemmas like, some people say, oh, John Hogue is a reincarnation of Nostradamus, while at the same time, you've got people channeling Nostradamus and getting from him. But if the soulish part of Nostradamus is reincarnated in John Hogue or anybody else, and the spirit of Nostradamus is out in the ether somewhere, that might explain the conundrum, or maybe we're just silly.
Yeah, I think it's that thing that I always wrestle with is that, all right, if we look at it just simply from a physiological perspective, all right, so the brain is really an electrical organ. It has the most ability. I didn't realize this, but they're finding now that a corpse that has been dead for almost 3 days, they still find it. They're finding cell activity. And they're finding it in the brain. There's electrical activity up to 3 days still taking place in the brain, which means that if there is electrical division going on in the brain, then something is happening there. They don't know what.
Yeah, I'd love to see that data. That's interesting.
I'll send the article to you. It's quite fascinating. So I didn't realize this. So if you're a recipient of a transplanted organ, now this gets really weird. If that organ was harvested after death, you stand a 90% chance of developing any number of cancers. If that organ was transplanted while the patient was still alive, you will actually endure less than a 10% chance or with the genetics. And what they found out was this, is that when the body dies and the circulation ceases, that there is an immediate release of an enzyme that activates genes in our bodies, all the way back to our fetal genes. Now, it also releases a cell that begins activating by this gene. Are you ready for this? That begins to send to every organ, every cancer, every sickness that is known to the body immediately through all the organs.
It starts sending all the sicknesses? It's almost as if transplanting of organs isn't supposed to be.
Isn't it? It would almost seem like that is what's being said here.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize this. It was, to me, it was like, whoa. We all hear about the rejection, did the kidney take, et cetera, the bone marrow. But I never realized that that was the difference between organ harvesting.
Interesting. Catherine says that's why men back in the day always wore hats. I'm not sure where she's going with that.
I'm not sure.
Explain,
maybe
Catherine.
About the soul?
Maybe. Is this soul going to keep my hat?
I wear it because I used to have more hair up there. I often tell people, I really love rabbits because I have a receding hairline.
I don't like hats, but for some reason, this hat caught my eye at a store, and
I like that.
I like the "Don't Tread on Me." I mean, it works well for, a political statement, and it works well for, statement to the rat bastard, "Don't tread on me." But I've been told, Wayne, that this hat is now considered racist.
Boy, it seems like today everything is racist. And isn't it always odd that the word racist is taken from races?
Yeah, well, get over it. I'm wearing the hat.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, we all have all the races in us. And this is what most people don't realize. You have, you could have been a brown individual, a red individual, a black individual, a beige individual. Get over it, folks.
By this time, there's so much mixture within the genome that we probably do have the seeds of the blood of all races in us. And I guess it is a little different. I was going to say, is the blood of a black person different than the blood of a white person or an Asian person? I guess to some extent there are different alleles and things like that, different, obviously, melanonins and melatonins and whatever they are. So,
if you really want to get down to it, here's the point. We don't know who we are. The RH factor. No matter what the debate is, no matter how you want to say it got here, the fact of the matter is we don't know how the rhesus hormone got into us. It's there.
Catherine explained, she said, because the soul is in the head, which I would agree. So keeping a hat on it, interesting.
Yeah. Although I have seen when I go out of my body, it seems like I'm coming out from almost the groin.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I've never heard that before. That's fascinating. Most people go out through the crown chakra. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting, Wayne. You never cease to interest me, Mr. Steiger.
I spoke in tongues when Mary Rodwell was on there, and it really got a lot of people going.
You did that?
Yes, I did.
Dude, I'm afraid to do that. I don't want to let that archonic virus back into my operating system.
I had it before I was a Christian, though.
Have you suffered any detrimental effects from doing it?
No. I can actually say right now, things have turned 180 degrees. And I give a lot of this credit, to the fact of Heidi, remarkable gifting. Remarkable gifting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
Very interesting. Yeah, Jim Dawson says my race is the human race.
exactly. I mean, we're Homo sapiens. Now,
Yeah.
that means that it goes back to Homo erectus, Homo Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, Denison. I
And I
mean,
still suggest that if you were off planet for 5 years and you were living on Venus somewhere and you saw a human being walk into the room, you wouldn't say, there's a black guy, there's a white guy, there's an Asian guy, there's a Mexican guy. You'd say, there's a human.
yeah,
And you'd run up and give him a big hug.
yeah. I mean, it's so weird how we get. You know why they do that? They do that so they can divide us.
Exactly. Divide and conquer.
Yeah. And one day our species is going to wake up, or we're going to start all over again. One of the two, I don't know. But
unfortunately, I think it might be the latter, Wayne.
I tell you, at times. Yesterday, I was at the store, right? And I have a very jovial, upbeat attitude. And as the
How
guy
tall
was
are you, Wayne, by the way?
5'10".
Okay.
And
that's the perfect height, by the way.
Is it?
Yes.
Who knew that?
Because I'm 5'10".
Okay. There you go. And so this is a young man. I know him. He's a high school senior. And it's great to talk to the youth, because I think that if they can see me as I have become an older man, I don't see that in the inside, but that's the fact of reality. There is still that connection, and we're laughing. The woman next to me checking out, she says, I hate people that always have this good attitude.
Did she really?
And I just turned around and I told her, I said, hate is the absence of knowledge. And people started laughing. And, well, she wasn't too happy. She left. But yes, she did. Yeah. So that she hated people that had a jovial attitude.
Well, that's a sad person.
Oh, I think there's a lot of sad people.
Typically, hurting people will hurt people.
Yeah.
And in case you're wondering, Sterling from Osaka is 6'2".
Wow. It's so cool. I mean, the diversity of our species is amazing.
It really is.
And I tell people all the time, it's not if we would start looking at ourselves as an endangered species, I wonder how quickly we would begin to change our attitudes.
Wayne, do you run across these people? And it seems like every day I get hit with this militant black spiritualist movement. All white people are devils. Only the black people, quote unquote, are going to heaven.
Wow.
Just craziness.
Where's your head in that? I mean, that's why I don't believe in the concept of heaven. I think that it's impossible to satisfy the human spirit. I don't think we ever can be satisfied. The minute that we're satisfied is the minute we cease to exist.
Interesting.
I mean, that's how I see this. And
somebody brings up the Obama portrait.
Yeah. It's sad. It really is sad. I mean, how would you like to be? It's like that bumper sticker I saw at the Tropicana back in I still remember 1989, and it said, Jesus loves you because everyone else thinks you're an asshole.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what heaven really is. If you adapt to that, then really what you're saying is heaven is you. Because everyone's going to think like you. Everyone's going to act like you. Everyone's going to look like you.
That's true.
I mean, that's why I can't believe in the concept of heaven. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Do you think the death of Billy Graham might be signaling the death of evangelical Christianity as a whole?
I do. I believe that God spell is being broken. And if in the indications, I have this one video, two creations, two worlds. It gets a lot of traffic. And in there, I bring out the debate, Genesis 1:26 to Genesis 2:7. And I said, if you take the story from your Christian faith, understand, number one, the Hebrews didn't get this story. They got it from the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans got it from the Akkadians. The Akkadians got it from the Mesopotamians, who got it from the Sumerians. And I said, so let's establish what they're talking about here. And I still contend that the story really is telling us that there's a lot of versions of us.
Right.
I really do believe that, Jeff.
Yeah. And somebody mentions, we say that evangelical Christianity is dying, but Kenneth Copeland's church is still full. Joel Osteen's church is still full. So there are still definitely some very strong pockets of evangelical Christianity, but something tells me that the death of Billy Graham is a harbinger for the death of evangelical Christianity, at least as we know it. May take a while. But
Well,
I think the right proverbial writings on the wall, they've been weighed in the balance and found wanting.
you can go to the National Council of Churches. You also can go to the IRS, and you can get the records from 2 years ago, because that's how far they lag behind. But we also know from court records, we also know from current real estate records, that on average in the United States right now, there are over 170, I think the last number, 176 churches closing each month. The largest by percentage is the Catholic churches. They are closing their parishes and selling them wholesale. We're seeing the stagnation and reduction in the Southern Baptists, departures of that. When you talk about evangelical, are you talking about, community churches, interdenominational, et cetera, et cetera? The biggest trend that continues to happen, and this is what's the biggest threat to these megachurches, is that home groups are becoming satellite churches. And this is becoming the largest trend, particularly in America. And this is the problem, because they're breaking away from doctrine. And once they begin to pull away from a pastor, the pastoral overview, what's happening, these people are suddenly beginning to come awake. They're reading their Bibles.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Well, the thing I get asked all the time is to please help explain Job 1:9. How is it possible that Satan was among the angels, the archangels?
Because it's a terrible translation. That's not what it says.
Well, but that's what they all have, and that's what the standard is. Yeah. I mean, it's like when you see what the youth is today. I mean, you read the story. I just read the story last night of a 28-year-old woman who dumps popcorn on top of the head of a 2-year-old because the 2-year-old was crying in the movie. Now, the parents should have gotten up and taken the child out, granted. But this is the type of society, and I've asked myself, Jeff, we have a great group here. And on my channel, I just, they're intuitive, they're smart, intelligent, and kind. But unfortunately, it's not outside. It doesn't go very far outside that.
It doesn't. And we have to, and sometimes we can get a little bit, myopic. We sit here on YouTube, some of us more than others, and we think that, we begin to think that we're everybody. But if you step back, and you can look at it two ways. Number one, you can say, you know what, people like, I don't know, between, Heidi and you and me and Rex and stuff, you may have nearly 300,000 people, which makes you feel really good. And I do feel really good about it. But when you really step out and look from a macro view, that's not even a drop of a drop of a drop of a drop in the big bucket. So while it's great that we're growing, we're still really, 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 some would say insignificant. I don't say insignificant, but definitely very, very small.
And someone told me, and I had to agree, that they said, because I feel this way at times, but we're also having an effect. More people are coming. So the message must be resonating, Jeff, to a degree. And I think within that, we can take solace.
Absolutely, because it's growing every day. And, every movement typically starts with, just a handful of people. So we're the handful and we're ready to grow. I
actually had one gentleman write me the very kindest email. He said, what I really like about all you guys, and he mentioned, Rex, you, Heidi, Trisha, Sandra, all the people that are in the group, Jennifer, the whole biz. And he said, is the fact that he says, you folks are consistent. He says, I've been watching you and Jeff, he says, for months now. I didn't realize, but we started this last fall.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
I didn't realize that either. And he just said, you guys are consistent. He said, my Sunday mornings are always now watching this. And he's inviting friends on this. So
when are we going to do them on our treadmill with a gas mask?
Well, I say anytime, because
have you seen Rex do that?
I have not. I have to admit.
He gets on his treadmill wearing a gas mask and he reads the crazy comments. So anyway,
this is what I love about this experience. When you meet individuals such as Rex Bear, it shows you that we have to stop and just enjoy the moment.
And Wayne, it's even more so, and I hope that we can facilitate more of this in the future, because I literally physically met Rex Bear.
Yeah, you did.
I was in the presence of the Great One, and in presence, he's exactly like he is on a show. I met Heidi Vandenberg. I met Jenny Moonstone.
Yeah.
I met Sandra D. Who else have I met? I met a few other people as well. And it's awesome. It's really different when you meet somebody that you've been corresponding with, via YouTube. But everyone that I've met has been exactly what I expected them to be. Although I did expect the old cliche that Rex would be taller. He's not 6'4".
Yeah, but inside, my spirit knows no bounds, knows no constraints.
So it's very interesting. The more, and I hope that we can continue to facilitate that, to meet more people that actually face to face. So it really makes a big difference, I think, when you get to see them. And it's nice that they're just as cool of people in person as they are in their virtual self.
Someone said they ought to get us in Vegas. I agree with that. And I also agree with what Belinda was saying. It's the cookies.
I've also met Hillary K. Davis as well.
Okay, great. And just like the rest of us.
Well, I don't know. Hillary K. Davis is kind of a jerk, but no, I'm kidding.
Well, I don't know.
I'm totally kidding. I'm going to get in trouble for that. I'm totally kidding.
So what do you have on your agenda this week, my friend? By the way, are you on shortwave now?
I had to put that off a little bit just because of all the traveling and stuff, but
yeah,
it's just a matter of making a recording and loading it up to the server. So yeah, we're definitely going to do it. And Brendan's talking about mocha colostrum shots, another Rex Bear reference.
Oh, he ought to really seriously, trademark that.
He ought to. That is craziness. It really is.
I got 420 cookies in my top drawer.
Something tells me that has to do with illegal substances.
420, I don't know. It's I always have this reminding me 432.
Which is what?
The key to the an equation. I'm going to have a gentleman on. He goes by the name of the Mad Hatter, and he has taken.
That's not Robert Stanley?
No, I don't think so. The guy is smart. He has taken Tesla's 369 and broken this thing. And
it's the 432, the hue.
Yeah. And so I have this all over. This number just stays with me constantly now. I meditate on it, and I sense that I need to, and it's interesting.
What do you think that means when you see number patterns consistently? Does that mean you're looking for them, or does that actually have some esoteric meaning?
I think it has esoteric meaning.
I'm a little bit skeptical, but I'm willing to listen.
Well, I'm not a person. I'll tell you an experience I have, and I still have the receipt over here on the other side of my office. In 2014, I began to see the sequence of numbers 555. And I'd be boarding a flight, 555. I got into a restaurant, picked up the tab. The tab number on it was 555. It began to go everywhere, and it was persistent for months. Had I known someone like Heidi, Tricia, others, who could have given me some insights on what fives mean, I could have better prepared myself, because what it was indicating to me from the spiritual realm, I believe, or the ether, however you want to look at it, that change was coming. And holy crap, change did come. Wow. And now, today, I see, for instance, I see the numbers 333 all the time, everywhere I go. And I see other sequence of numbers. I see them in my dreams. So I happen to think that there's profound significance in those numbers.
You actually see numbers in your dreams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I literally do.
Interesting.
Literally.
That's very interesting.
You know, I think numbers are important. You know, it's the question I've heard. If I could give you the number of the exact moment that you were going to die, would you find significance in that number?
I wouldn't want to know it, to be frank with you.
Yeah. And, you know, because here's the thing I never figured out was that the significance of our birth, you know, by numbers tells us our life path going forward.
Interesting. So what about our death number?
Yeah. I haven't ever seen any studies on that, but I bet you that that is another hidden gem of knowledge that our species has lost. Wouldn't the death have just as much significance about what it was saying about the life?
But you can't tell when it's going to be.
I know. I realize that. It's just
until afterwards. So yeah, I mean, after you die, you should take a look at the numbers of the day you died.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know.
Might give you some. It has to have some significance.
I would think it would, right, Jeff? I mean,
well, then you look at I get hit by a meteor falling out of the sky, hit me and killed me. Does that really mean that was significant, or was it just bad luck? Should have been standing 2 feet to the left instead of to the right.
Boy, yeah, I just got my mind going here because, you know, listen, you step on the other side. If numbers have significance here, I can't help but think they would have, because that's the only way the message is coming, unless you just simply believe in the coincidences of random encounters.
Fascinating stuff. So I would say your death card, your death numbers have to have some tremendous significance, but
if anything, Jeff, think about it from maybe the month or the day.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we won't be able to understand it in this life, but
no.
And I don't plan on coming back, but I'll take that information and use it.
I don't want to come back.
I wind up.
Man, I'll tell you, the more and more I see this, I mean, Jeff, there are times where I'm meditating and I don't know, sometimes I think I shouldn't share so much, but there are times where I see myself and I can look down on this world, and the world is, it's a very sick place right now. I think the earth, I think she is sick.
Well, we've been dogging her for so long, she has to be sick.
I think, and I get this psychic impression she's sick. And, you know, I don't know.
And if the earth is sick, let's say the earth is sick, and let's say the earth is a divine consciousness. And if you look around and identify the virus that's making her sick, it's probably us. So does the day come where the earth throws off humans as a virus? Like Agent Smith said in The Matrix, humans are a virus. Everywhere they go, they spread death. Is the time coming when the earth is going to throw us off? Kill us? An ancient virus being released from Earth changes. So, folks, I think we're about to get hit, and I'll just break this. I'm doing a story, been working with a subscriber over in Norway. He's the one who's bringing me the articles. I think we're about to get
I think it's going to get very, let me just say this. The permafrost is defrosting, and it's
Ah,
not only thawing, it's becoming dry. And they are finding viruses, bacterium that is millions of years old, reanimating.
interesting.
Our bodies are most likely have no immunities and no antibodies to these viruses.
Is this the source of all these superflus?
Don't know, but there's good evidence that says that this has been ongoing now. And when you have institutes and governments like Norway, Sweden that are doing the research, Russia apparently is into the research as well, and that they're extracting these exotic viruses, this bacteriums as well, from the permafrost that has not seen atmospheric exposure for millions of years.
Somebody's telling me, Callie's saying that George Carlin did a skit like this. I can't remember it.
I don't know, but I love George. I saw him while he was alive.
Like George would talk about.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's some changes going on, my friend. There really is.
That.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we either need to change the way we act, or it's going to be changed for us.
I think, I mean, and listen, there's a lot of intuitives in here. And this video will be showing over on my channel as well. They know it. They sense it. I sense it. You know, some of the guests I've had on recently have been saying the same thing, that the earth is sick. We have done something to her that, and I think that it's also from the outside. There's some kind of outside influence that was on or out there. It's happening. It's happening, and you know, I don't know, buddy.
Boy, something to ponder, something to think about.
We won't be bored, at least in our shows.
Yeah.
But seriously,
all we can really do is ask ourselves, what do we do towards the earth? How do we treat the earth? Can we make changes within our environment? Pardon me, they're going to show more respect towards the earth and more respect towards Gaia. And I think that we can all make those changes in our own life, and we can get in contact with her, we can get in touch with her, and we can stop personally doing things that are causing troubles to the earth.
Excuse me. I'm one of the things I've become very conscious of is water.
Right.
Fresh water. Wow. I didn't. It's becoming, and it's by all indications, it's going to become even a more serious problem. Jeff, here in Denver, we are in the midst of a serious drought, and I have deep concerns because our temperatures, for the most part, this fall and winter have been averaging 15 to 20 degrees above average. And my friend, come July, that means if we keep this trend up, that means temperatures here of 115, 120 degrees.
Well, let's hope that it doesn't continue that.
I hope it does not either. I really don't. It's getting to be real concern, though, for a lot of us here. And I'm just wondering, is this still the effect?
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention, I'll just mention in passing before we go. 6 months ago, I was always getting asked, to ask the rods, is Donald Trump going to run for a second term? It always said no. About 2 months ago, it started saying maybe, and then of course this week he announced that he is going to run in 2020. Does he think he's got a chance to get his agenda going, Wayne? What's the change of heart in Donald Trump?
I keep on thinking we're seeing the dilation effect of the looking glass device, and your rods are tapped into the ethereal, the ether. They sense the vibrations of time, and time has a predictable event within a given circumstance. The looking glass device presents to these archons the ability to see multiple potential futures. And that's why I think they change. I think that's why it's fluid. That's why I think your rods or the cards could say something one day, and a month later they could be indicating something else, because Jeff, I just did a video this week called "Did We Experience Another Shift?"
Yeah, I saw that one.
And you know what? I felt it. And oddly enough, and you can check the comments for yourself, apparently a lot of other people are sensing that something has changed.
Right. And I thoroughly believe that Trump did change his mind.
I do too.
And I'd like to think it's a good thing, but we'll see what 2020 brings.
I hope that this is not, remember what the wise man said, be careful for what you wish for.
That's for sure.
I don't know. I got to tell you, buddy, I get some of the, my wife says that this is what she has, that this is the spidey senses. Something has changed. I don't know what it is, but.
Well, we definitely live in interesting times.
We do, my friend. We do.
Never a dull moment unless you're just not paying attention.
There's a lot that aren't. But we'll help them along the way.
Busy, Wayne. If there's a lot that aren't paying attention, we need to do all we can.
Well, that's what we're doing here. We're showing people you can do it with joy. You can do it with respect. You can do it with a sense of awe.
You can.
Yeah. And, you know, I think what people love about this show is that our discourse from one another is always respectful. We don't always agree. And even when we find room for disagreement, I find new information, new knowledge.
Absolutely. I'm still hoping you'll come around, Wayne.
Well, you know, there's always hope.
Oh,
I love it.
Lots of good stuff. Lots of people, introspective comments within the chat room. It's really good stuff. And I appreciate doing this with you.
Hey, I enjoyed, Jeff.
What are your closing comments?
Well, I think that the question I keep asking myself, why do we punish ourselves? Now, I understand when you violate, you know, a belief and what have you, but the question is, why do we continually punish ourselves, Jeff?
That's a great question. And I would answer because it's been hammered into us societally for 2,000 years, for ourselves as long as we've been here, that we're born with original sin. And the best we can ever be is a sinner saved by grace. And if you forget about that and realize that you've got the spark of divinity within, that changed your whole view of you. And once you change your whole view of you, you're able to change your whole view of me, because you have a sneaky suspicion that he might have the spark of divinity in him as well.
I can't think of a better way to end the show on.
Well, I salute you, Wayne Steiger, and all of our great...
Thank you, everyone.
What is this? It's a great audience.
It's just wonderful.
Next Sunday morning. And Wayne, I ought to have you on the channel and just interview you and talk about your work one of these days.
Love to, Jeff. Love to, buddy.
All right, my friend. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. He's R. Wayne Steiger. This has been Not Your Normal Sunday Morning Show. Make sure you go over and subscribe to the R. Wayne Steiger channel. Make sure you subscribe to this one, and make sure that you are still subscribed, because for some reason people do get dropped off the roll. So make sure on both channels. And
like the show. Like the show, folks.
Absolutely. And make sure to visit Rex Bear and Heidi Vandenberg and Jenny Moonstone and Sandra D and Trisha and Dan at Overwatch Channel and many, many more that I'm forgetting about. But we're all one family. There's no such thing as them. There's only us, and nobody's free till we're all free. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.